Hey everyone, thanks for clicking the video. Really appreciate it. I wanted to talk about today about the potential of a contract extension with Baker Mayfield and kind of what I'm seeing online. Coming from a Browns fan, seeing other Browns fans online too with their input and takes on it. A lot of people online seem to think that are Browns fans that we should extend him right away. And I'm kind of a differing opinion of that, although I do want to go over some quick pros and cons I could see with extending him right away to a contract extension for this offseason. Some of the pros, real quick, I guess, to start with for extending Baker Mayfield for a longer contract is the number one, what I have on my little list, is the chance to get him at a cheaper rate than other quarterbacks that are coming up for extensions. I think it could be very beneficial for him to set the benchmark of the new price point and contract price point for quarterbacks moving forward that need to get extended. That includes any quarterback in his rookie class that looks like they're going to get a contract extension. So I'm automatically thinking of Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And looking at, I was just looking up stats online, and you could break down stats whatever the heck way you want. I'm kind of a use the eyeball test, I guess you can say, and stats can be derived to help your argument any way possible. So yeah, I take it for a grain of salt with certain stats, how they come about, and who people show for why this person's better than this person based on this statistic. Because I think it's like numbers. You could just slice and dice it any way possible to make your argument seem like it's correct. Having said that, one stat that I was looking at online was QBR ranking, which is from ESPN, and according to Pro Football Reference, I was just comparing Baker Mayfield with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, and both Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson actually had a higher QBR ranking than Baker Mayfield this past season. Lamar Jackson had a 73.7 QBR, Josh Allen had a 81.7, and Baker had a 72.6, which was 10th overall in the league for QBR ranking. And looking at the trajectory of the past 3 years since they've been in the NFL, Baker does kind of compare to what Josh Allen had for QBRs in the last two seasons, with Baker being 19th and 24th, and Josh Allen, or 19th in 2019, 24th in 2018, and Josh Allen not too far off in both of those seasons. And I think it's kind of interesting that all three quarterbacks would be up for contract extensions, and they're kind of all in the same playing field with what should be done to a certain extent. I think I biased aside as a Browns fan. I thought Josh Allen had a better season. Hate to say that, Browns fans, but let's face it, the team Buffalo played really well. I thought Baker Mayfield played really well, in particular the second half of this past season. So we do have some strong data that shows that he can play at a high level, although I don't think it's as long as what Josh Allen has had so far. Now, obviously, Lamar Jackson's Lamar Jackson. Anyone could argue he's a special player, but at the same time, we all know his limitations. I'm going to be biased right here and say that as a Browns fan, I think there are certain limitations that might not be in his favor and the Ravens' favor when they're trying to win the ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl. I think he might be a little bit limited with his skill sets and getting them to that point. But yeah, well, when it comes to pro number one of a contract extension this offseason for Baker Mayfield, the chance to give him a cheaper rate, with those three quarterbacks being relatively similar, I think it would be beneficial for us to kind of set that benchmark target and not have either one of the two or the two other quarterbacks kind of create that benchmark, and then we would have to up it from there. Because of course, any person who's looking for a larger contract, you want to get the most money you can. You have a data point right there that says this person received X amount of money, I should at least get that or more. Why not? And you're telling me I'm not worth that person's value to my team, to your own team. So that's kind of why it could be beneficial to have them signed early on and jump on that, and that way let the other two teams figure their situations out on their own from Baker's contract. I do also think pro number two, the psychological side of things with Baker and the team, if you give him a contract extension this offseason, that could be beneficial. And that's kind of tying into my point number three, which is we're riding with him 100%. I think that kind of signals to the team that, hey, we're willing to pay our players to do very well, a lot of money, B, we have our quarterback moving forward and take it or leave it, where there's no questions about it. We're riding with him or dying with him essentially. And I think that also shows the overall ownership support of just the team moving forward and saying that we have our signal caller of the future. We have a young team on the up and up, and that Baker is the right person to lead the ship per se. So those are some pros I do see of a contract extension for this offseason if we choose to for Baker Mayfield. The two cons, the two cons I have for extending him this offseason. One is his inconsistent production so far, and that kind of will be hard to gauge what his future production will be. Now, I'm not one to say that he is at blame at all for his poor season last year and any poor production he's had so far in his career. I do think other outside circumstances, whether that be head coach, players around him, ownership, what have you, just they have not been the best fit for him, and it's kind of made it very difficult for him to play and learn and kind of just become a quarterback in the NFL. When you go through all these different coach changes and like offensive systems, it's essentially like learning a new job every year, and that's just it's hard to say that it's hard to keep building on those blocks that you already had from that prior season when they keep changing. But having said that, though, I do think we have to at least admit as a Browns fan, like Baker, I thought this past season he played, like I said earlier, really well in the second half. The first half I thought he played okay, nothing great, nothing bad. His rookie year, I thought he played good. I didn't think he played that great as some Browns fans make him seem like he did. I thought he tore up some games that he played very well, but those were against a little bit weaker defenses. And I do think the highs of this past season were a lot better, and the eyeball test should tell you that too, against better teams that he dominated against than his rookie year. So I think the highs of this past season were better than his highs of his rookie year. And that's kind of why I don't see how we have a lot of data on him yet. Saying that he's going to be consistently our guy, he's going to be consistently improving, he's going to consistently do well. Not saying he's not, I'm just saying that from this standpoint, we just don't have that information. Again, I'm not blaming him at all. I'm not saying he's a bad quarterback or anything. I'm just saying that till now, and especially from an analytical front office, I think it would make sense just to have the data there that backs up saying, hey, this guy's our guy based on the information. And right now, there are some data to say that, but I just don't know if there's enough to warrant the contract extension this offseason. Now, partially because of that, if he plays well next season, there's going to be a lot more data to back up the reasoning for him to be the future quarterback moving forward with a contract extension. I think it would absolutely make sense then to give him that extension the following season. The second con I have too is it's kind of a cop-out that national media always brings up, and I think it's a kind of BS, that he could be the Jared Goff or Carson Wentz 2.0 with that large contract, and he just absolutely tanks. I could see that argument. I think those two comparisons or those two quarterbacks as like comps to like what could happen is it's kind of difficult to say that just because every quarterback, every situation's unique. Clearly, as a Browns fan, we should know that our situation's unique, and I just don't see why it would make sense to compare to those two teams when one played on the Rams, and obviously the Eagles are a complete mess right now, but that's a different story. But that does a little bit tie into my why I do think it's a con that we just don't have enough data yet to say that he's a really good quarterback yet. I'm not saying he's not. I'm just saying we just don't have that information yet that he can consistently be that. And I think that's why the national media kind of spins it that way a lot. And to a certain extent, I don't blame them from that viewpoint. I think it's safe to say that he is not a bad quarterback. It's safe to say that from a Browns fan, we're used to all these horrible quarterbacks, and it's pretty clear that he's at least competent as a quarterback, at least an average quarterback that could play in the NFL, and that's better than we've had since I've been watching the Browns, which is a while now. And that's why Browns fans get so excited about Baker and his production. But at the same time, if you look at the rest of the league, I think we need to make sure if we're going to spend that much money on him for a contract extension, really hurt our cap space, that we need to make sure he's our guy. And I think that's why at the end of the day, I would actually agree that it would make sense to just pick up that fifth-year option, obviously, and then just have him wait and play out the next season, and then take that risk of the other quarterbacks potentially signing a contract already, and just have him sign a contract extension if he plays well right after that. I think that'll give us the opportunity to confirm that he is our quarterback. It could hedge our bets for if some reason crap hits the fan, and it will give us also some time to kind of figure out more if this is the right direction overall the franchise needs to go, which I think is important too, especially since we have this new coaching staff where Kevin Stefanski clearly is a competent head coach, but we need to make sure that he has the right signal caller to move forward. And the last thing we want is complete the Philadelphia Eagles, for example. We don't want a situation where we sign Baker, not to compare him to Carson Wentz, but I guess I'm going to, and have a contract extension like that, and then Baker just plays absolutely terrible, and then before you know it, a coach that Doug Peterson, who's considered one of the best coaches in the league, just completely goes haywire, and then everyone goes against him, and we don't want that with our quarterback and our head coach, Kevin Stefanski, in the future too. Not saying that's going to happen, but that's the last thing we want to see though. So I don't know. I think it would make sense to wait on extending him, and then next offseason, clear if he has a good season, I think it'll be the right time to sign him and extend him, and hopefully he'll be the quarterback in the future. I think at the end of the day, no matter what side you're on as a Browns fan, you would hope, or we should all hope, that we found our guy, and it's one less hurdle to worry about to get winning to the Super Bowl. And I do think too, what's on Baker's side, as much as I don't say that's due to his success this past season, but the help around him is going to be pretty darn good with the offense and the defense, hopefully get more stacked this offseason. And with all that talent, I think that'll help him, hopefully at least us, reach the playoffs. And if he reaches the playoffs, it'll be hard for the front office to argue for not extending him, especially as long as he plays relatively well. I kind of think of like a Kirk Cousins to a certain extent, not comparing Baker to Kirk Cousins, but he plays well in his system currently in the Vikings, and when they make the playoffs, he looks like a very good quarterback. And I thought he had a good season this past year, but with him not making the playoffs in the Vikings, I think that kind of puts a bad light on him for whatever reason. But yeah, those are just my thoughts on waiting to extend Baker Mayfield for the contract extension. Let me know if you guys have any thoughts, and thanks for watching.